Hello, and welcome to a webinar about what data does your psychometrician need for item and form analysis. My name is Stacy Jones. I am going to be your presenter today. I am AIR's Program Manager and Director of Research. I'm a PMP Certified Project Manager, but this webinar is specifically special for me because I came into the field of psychometrics through statistics. I have 2 degrees in physics. I have over 15 years worth of research and data analysis experience. And when I came into psychometrics 7 years ago, it was doing item and form analysis. So this is something special to me and my gateway into psychometrics. Today, we want to talk about data. Data is scary for a lot of people, but when you're dealing with testing, a lot of people who aren't used to data suddenly find themselves having to deal with it. And in this specific case for this webinar, it tends to be people who are part of a testing association or a testing group. They have a test delivery provider, but either they don't have psychometric services, or their services were too expensive, or perhaps you need to have a certain volume and able to use their psychometric services. So you get an outside vendor such as AIR to do all of your form and item statistics. And of course, your test delivery vendor is not going to directly give us that data, and they shouldn't, because it's a possible security breach. So somebody who's not used to having to deal with this type of data has to download it and clean it up and send it to their psychometrician. Generally speaking, it's because you've started a new exam, you've just finished beta testing, and now your psychometrician needs the data so that you can move on to cut score and standard setting. Or maybe you're doing standard annual maintenance in order to properly take care of your exam. This webinar is also for people who maybe you're starting a brand new exam, you don't have a test delivery provider, or you're creating your own LMS in order to do it. Knowing not only the front end, which is about uploading your items and all of the tricks and how to do that, it's also the back end where you've been delivering the test and now you need the statistics for your psychometrician. And if when you're building your LMS or you're evaluating your test delivery vendors, you can also look at how easy it is to do that. Make sure you can get all of the data that you need as a way to determine whether it's the provider that you want or the LMS is going to work the way you anticipate for every test need that you have. So really, what are these item and form statistics for, right? Every psychometrician tells them that you need them, but you don't understand what they're doing for you. There's a lot of things that they're doing for you. We can use statistics to tell you pretty much anything you could possibly think of, plus things you wouldn't think of about your exam. The ones that you're going to hear about the most, the ones that are going to affect you the most are the right people passing? Are the people who should be failing? We can tell you which items are too easy, which ones are too hard, which items are reliable, which ones are not. We can tell you if your exam's been compromised. We can tell you if specific items have been compromised. We can tell you if people are cheating in general. We can also tell you if there are problems with your distractors. The biggest thing, however, that we need to tell you with item statistics is what actions you need to take in order to improve your exam. And that's a lot of what how we need the data has to do with is, hey, we've done your statistics and here are these items that have these problems we need to look over. Please go find that item so that we can do what is called an item audit and discuss this with SMEs, discuss the problems that we found. Are they really problems? And what are the actions that we need to take with these possibly problematic items? So this is what an example of the data is. I'm in a very difficult position in discussing this with you because I can't show you real data. If I showed you real data, I am violating the security and the IP of a client, and I'm not going to do that. So we do the best we can by giving an example of data in the way that we need it. And what I'm going to do in this webinar is go over what each of the things on the spreadsheet on the screen that you're seeing are, where we need them, and generally speaking, what they're for. Starting with item IDs. Now, I'm going to talk about item IDs probably for most of this webinar. And the reason I'm going to talk about them at length is because they tend to cause the most amount of confusion. They actually, because of the confusion, tend to cause the highest number of arguments. And it is also where the highest number of errors when we get data come from. Now, what is an item ID and why are they important? An item ID is a unique identifier for a single exam item. Remember, an exam item is an exam question. It should follow the exam item through its entire existence for the duration of the exam program. It is how you find items in what we deem your item bank. An item bank tells you what the item text is. It tells you who wrote the item, when they wrote the item, what form it's been on, if it's rejected, if it's accepted, it's its item statistics. All of that information is considered your item bank, and that can be in one location or can be in multiple locations. But you want to be able to find that information by using your item ID. You want to think about it as something similar to the VIN number on your car. When you get a report from Carfax and it's telling you everything there is to know about your car, it's because when you go to your insurer, when you go to a mechanic, they write down that VIN number and Carfax searches for that VIN number in order to find information about your car, no matter who has owned it. Same thing with an item ID. Now, a lot of people talk about item text instead of an item ID. What is item text? Technically, item text is the whole item. It's the stem, which is the actual question. It's the options. It's the key, which is the correct answer amongst your options. I will normally refer to item text as the stem only. And when psychometricians are talking to you about item text, that's normally what they're referring to as well. Now, why are we going to demand item IDs in a data set and not item text? Most people feel that item text is going to be the easiest way to handle issues, handle data, handle issues with items. There are 15 to 20 reasons that I can come up with off the top of my head alone, but I am going to discuss 3 of the major reasons that we are going to demand item IDs over item text in data. First and most important is your exam security. Every time you write the item text, you have opened up an opportunity to compromise your exam, because that's what most people are looking for. If they have the stem, they can figure out the answer. So you don't want to be sending us all of these spreadsheets that have all of your item text, and more importantly, you don't want annual reports with your item text, because those are going to be the easiest things for people to steal or people to copy and send to other people. And this is ameliorated by simply using an item ID, because an item ID doesn't tell anybody outside your organization anything about your item. Now, beyond exam security, what's a second reason? I'm going to call this reason, I don't know what item you're talking about. And the easiest way to explain this is through an example. Here I have a sample of exam items that could be on one exam form. Remember, an exam form is the actual test that your test taker sees. Now, for some reason on this exam, it's very important that people be able to identify a marsupial. These aren't enemy items because the key is different, the option is different on all 3. But if you download this data for me and you only use item text to identify the item, this is what it looks like. I can't tell what item is what. If one of these came up as a problem, what we would call flagged, and I tell you, I need you to bring up which of the following is marsupial beyond, the testing security problem that I've just caused, I don't know what item I'm really talking about. You don't know what item I'm talking about, which makes the action that we need to do impossible to move forward with. The third reason to use item IDs and not item text in your data is something I'm going to call, I still don't know what item you're talking about. And again, easier to show than to explain. Let's say this is an example of items on one exam form. And please note that I have seen these issues. These are not made up problems. In this particular case, your actual questions are very different. However, your instructions at the beginning of each STEM are the same. And normally when you download, there is in fact a cutoff for characters. And so when you download it, now your data looks like this. And I have the exact same problem that I had before. I don't know what item I'm talking about when I talk to you. You don't know what item I'm talking about when I talk to you. And moving forward with actions is impossible. And please note that this happens without instructions, where a scenario is being set up, but they're asking a different part of the scenario. So the STEM starts out the same, even if the question is different. Now, are there ways to get around this? Yes, even without using item IDs. But at the end of the day, especially when you take into account exam security, the most efficient way, the easiest way to make sure that everybody knows what everybody's talking about and your exam is secure is to simply use item IDs to identify the item that we're talking about. And we need those item IDs to occur in this first row, where you simply have item 1, 2, 3, 4. Your item IDs can be as complicated as you want them to be. They can be as simple as you want them to be, as long as they are unique to that item in your system. Now, this is where people start to panic, because they've already uploaded their items. Their test is already in beta test. They didn't know that this was so important. They didn't realize that this needed to be done. Now what? Well, you're going to have to retroactively add them to all of your documents and systems, especially anywhere that there's item text. Just make sure that each ID is unique in your system, and that once again, when we tell you we need to find an item in order to deal with a flagged item in an item audit, that you're going to be able to find that specific item so that we can look at it with a group of SMEs. That's what's the most important. And anytime any information that has to do with that item, please add the item ID that you've used to that. Now, some people also find a problem where their LMS or their test delivery vendor simply doesn't have an item ID field. It's nowhere to be found. And now what do I do? So what we suggest is what I'm showing here as an example, which is that you add your item ID to the beginning of your STEM for all of your test questions. And then when you download the data, it's not going to matter about character cutoffs or anything like that. The item ID is going to be there, and all you need to do is remove the text from that cell, and then you're ready to go. And yes, we are going to insist that you remove the text, not us. It cuts down on errors. It cuts down on exam security problems that I talked about before. I understand that it's annoying, but you also don't want an extra charge from your psychometrician for having to clean up your data, which some of us will do. So put in that number in the actual test, remove the text before you give us the data. Remember, the item ID doesn't tell even the test candidate anything about your item, so you're not introducing any security problems by doing this. So, got your item IDs all set up. Here is what the data is supposed to look like. Let's look at some of the rest of this. So we're going to look at row A, where you're seeing a candidate. We need a candidate ID number. There should be a number that is assigned to a candidate no matter how often they take the exam. We need all of those numbers going down this horizontal row. And next to that row, we need the date they took the exam. Believe it or not, this is very important. Your psychometrician does need to know how many times a person is taking an exam and when they took it. There's several reasons to do that. I don't want to get into it on this webinar. It's just important that we know who took the exam and when they took the exam. And then next to that, you're going to see these ones and zeros. When you're actually looking at item data, it should read like a book. And so we're going to go across this row number 2 where we see candidate Jim Tom 1 took the exam on January 22nd, 2025. He got item 001 correct. That's what that 1 means. He got item 002 correct. That's what that 1 means. He got item 003 correct, item 004 correct, item 005 correct. Candidate number 2, Jim Tom 2, took the exam on January 23rd, 2025. He got item 001 incorrect. That's what the 0 means. He got item 002 incorrect. That's what the 0 means, and so forth and so on. Normally, they're not going to get everything right and they're not going to get everything wrong. There's going to be a mix, but that's what those ones and zeros means, and that's how this data should read when you give it to your psychometrician. And this is the standard normal way that a psychometrician is going to expect their data. There is a second way that you can give us data. It is not common because a lot of test delivery vendors do not even give it as an option for you to give us data this way. The only thing that changes if you give us data this way is we can do a distractor analysis. So as you can see, we still have candidate IDs going down row 1. We've got exam dates going down row 2. You've got your item IDs in that column 2. You've got your item IDs going across in that first row. And now what you're going to see is a second row that says key, which is your correct answer. And so now how this is going to read is candidate Jim Tom 1 took the exam on January 22nd, 2025, answered A for item 001, which is correct. The key is A. Answered for item 002, B, option B, which is correct. Answered option C for item 003, which is incorrect. Answered B for item 004, which is incorrect. Answered A for item 005, which is correct. So you want a distractor analysis. This is how we need the data. Now, is this everything that we need? Not quite. One last thing to cover, which is the list of everything you need to send your psychometrician when they're ready to do item-informed statistics. And this needs to be repeated for each individual exam and each individual form. So if you've got 5 exams, we need 5 sets of these. If you've got 1 exam but 3 forms, we need 3 sets of these. And that's how this goes. So first of all, most important, what this webinar is mostly about, is we need the data set. We need you using item IDs, candidate IDs, test dates. We need you to mark the unscored items in the data set. There's 2 ways that I suggest doing it. I actually suggest using both methodologies at the same time, which is you can put a P, which stands for pretest, in front of the item ID, or you can simply highlight that cell in Excel. And then it's very easy for us to identify. When you send us the file, please send it using either Excel or as a CSV file, because that we're going to be able to upload and use in any statistical software that we're using in order to do your statistics. Now, what we also need is a document or an email that tells us the following information about the specific form that data is for. Some of this we use for quality check. Some of it we actually need in order to do your statistics, and some of it we need for reporting. So these things are the number of exam takes, the number of scored items, the number of unscored items. If this is an existing exam and you have a cut score, we need to know the cut score. We need the date range that this particular exam form was available to test takers. And as an extra bonus for QCing, if you give us your pass rate for existing exams only, that's another way that we can double check the data. And that's everything that we need, and that's what the data needs to look like. Hopefully this has made this less scary and more doable for everybody who has to handle this stuff. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me through the AIR website, and hopefully we can get through this together in a much more happy place. Thank you so much for your time.